Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us here in the newsroom. I'm Yoo Ji-hye. Now, it certainly was an eventful week here in the newsroom with stories ranging from a cyber attack that crippled the networks of major broadcasters as well as commercial banks here in South Korea to the last-minute snag at the National Assembly over the much-disputed government restructuring bill. Our reporters are busy covering these stories and more and had a chance to talk to some of them this week. And here's what they had to say. In the Newsroom begins right now. So a lot has happened this week that have really kept us all on our toes. Of course, most of it being North Korea being center of that news stories. But of course, it was also a week with a lot of the developments out from the National Assembly, the political front as well. Earlier this week, we thought we were going to see some sort of a dramatic breakthrough at the National Assembly. That really wasn't the case. The votes on the very controversial government restructuring bill hit a last-minute snag, and I think the deadlock is still ongoing.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, very familiar, very frustrating situation. So, let's hear more from our political correspondent, Kim Yeon-ji, who's out at the National Assembly right now. I am sure there's another meeting coming up. So let's try to get her on our Skype and see what she has to say.
It's been a while.
Yeah. All right, Yeon-ji, thank you very much for talking to us.
No problem, guys.
I know you're very busy with the latest that's been happening out of the National Assembly, but what's going on there? I mean, earlier this week, we thought the two rival parties have actually came to agreement on this very much disputed restructuring bill, but it doesn't seem so now. What's stopping them?
Yes, that's right. If I could only express my frustration here at the National Assembly. You're very right. So on Monday, the ruling and opposition parties came out and said, okay, we reached an agreement over this much disputed issue of how much of a power the new science ministry should have over broadcast policy. But, after they reached an agreement, many media reports said that the agreement, their compromise, didn't leave any of the two parties completely satisfied. And I thought that another fresh impasse could be possible because of this issue. And that fear has become a reality, actually.
네, 안녕하세요. 저 아리랑 TV 김현지 기자인데요. 그 오전에 그거 회의는 어떻게 진행됐나요? 이게 마무리가 안 되면 본회의는 안 되는 거죠. 그러면 오늘 늦게 열리거나 안 열릴 수도 있는 거네요.
방송이나 증거와 관련된 용어는 모두 당의 법인의 합병 및 특허나 개인이 용인하는 수가 없었습니다.
저희들이 다른 이런 주장을 펼치는 것에 대해서는 과연 왜 이 문제가 더 과거 독일에서 갖는 저희가 순위 일관하지 않고
아니 그러니까 지금 그가 되어가는 걸 인정도 하잖아요. 그게 대한민국에 의미가 없잖아요. 그가 지금 적용이 안 된다.
계속 싸워요. 문방위에서. 어우, 디어. 이거 안 될 것 같은데? 아예 안 열릴지도 모르거든요. 6시에 한다고 하는데 그래서 제가 시제를 다르게 해서 두 개 찍어요.
Had very different ideas about how much of a say operators of cable and satellite television.
아, 네, 감사합니다. 안 열린대요.
안 걸리면 내일 2시. Sports, tourism, broadcasting, and communications. I could only express my frustration here at the National Assembly. You're very right. So on Monday,
So, I mean, with all these pending issues at hand, we know that there's going to be another meeting to be held around, I don't know, right this minute as we speak.
That's right. Actually, a plenary session was supposed to be held right now at 2 p.m., but just 5 minutes ago, we got the announcement that it's been delayed to 4 p.m. But just like yesterday, this pattern, it's the same pattern of happened on Wednesday. So reporters, including myself, are very frustrated, and we are just on our toes every minute, every hour, trying to see what kind of changes are likely to take place, but I don't see it coming. And because of this deadlock at the National Assembly, and with the deadlock over the passage of the government restructuring bills, they cannot even go ahead, push forward the nomination process for, minister nominees for the two newly created ministries, which is the New Science Ministry and the Ministry of Fisheries and Maritime Affairs. So without this, getting approved, no confirmation hearings for those two nominees are going to take place. So when is the new Park Geun-hye administration finally get ready to, operate and become fully functional? We don't know that, so it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, like you said, given that whether the new administration will succeed or not really depends on the very first, 100 days, and more than a fifth of these period has been spent and wasted on this prolonged negotiations. So, like you said, it's quite a frustrating situation there. But thank you, Yeon-ji, for taking your time to talk to us and share that with us.
No problem.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Now, moving on, after weeks of partisan bickering, the National Assembly has finally passed President Park Geun-hye's plan to reorganize the government. Lawmakers voted on the bills this Friday afternoon following countless rounds of negotiations that wrapped up late Thursday. Our National Assembly correspondent Kim Yeon-ji reports.
The legislature on Friday passed all of the bills that support President Park's plans to restructure the government, effectively ending the 51-day standoff at the National Assembly. The new Government Organization Act institutes 17 ministries, 3 lower-level ministries, and 17 independent agencies. The long overdue passage of the bills took place in a plenary session Friday, which was made possible after the ruling and opposition parties reached a consensus on the new Science Ministry's jurisdiction over broadcast policy late Thursday night. Now that all the legislative processes are over, the new Government Reorganization Act and the supporting bills will be sent to the Presidential Office of Cheongwade. The president expected to request confirmation of the nominees for the two newly created ministries, which is necessary for the government to become fully functional. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
All right, so just yesterday, a suspected cyber attack, the servers and networks were paralyzed, and the major broadcasters and commercial banks came as quite a surprise to many. I mean, I remember all of us here, we were having this afternoon a lineup meeting, and we're just, glancing up, and we saw breaking news that there's been sort of a computer sabotage against the South Korean broadcasters and banks.
Yes.
So tell us, where did this all came about?
Well, this was an unprecedented case to start off because it was on broadcasters, the state-run broadcaster, as well as the news-based broadcasters. And this case was like the first of its kind because like the previous times when the cyber attacks took place, it was targeted at government organizations like such as the president.go.kr or the Jungang Daily, the Jungang-ilbo, and all other like media and government organizations have been attacked, but it was for broadcasters.
Yeah, so 6 times since 2009. So this is not new in a sense that we had a cyber attack, but you're saying it's the very first time on commercial banks and major broadcasters?
The major broadcasters.
Right.
Correct. South Korea's major broadcasters and some of its biggest banks were hit with a cyber attack this afternoon, bringing operations to a halt.
We now connect to our Song Ji-sun for the latest news. We start from the beginning. Let us learn what's really been going down there, Ji-sun.
Well, Ganyang Daniel, it was at around 2 p.m. this afternoon when the computer networks of Korea's major broadcasters, KBS, MBC, and YTN, crashed. Now, 4 banks have also reported that their systems were affected. That includes Shinhan-bank, Nonghyup, Uri, and Jeju-bank. Now, employees at those affected companies said that their computers shut down all at once and could not be rebooted or restarted. The Cyber Terrorism Department at Korea's National Police Agency dispatched investigators to these locations as soon as they received the reports and repaired and recovered the systems on site.
How many or laptops are we talking about here?
We're talking about like 32,000 as of Thursday afternoon, including NBC, YTN, and the KBS and computers, as well as Nonghyup and Shinhan banks. And we just heard that North Korea could be a potential the threat, or who actually executed this attack, because the attack came from a Chinese IP address, and that's how the North Korean hackers usually do. They access through the Chinese IP to attack our websites or servers.
So yeah, of course, like immediately fingers are pointed at North Korea, but is there clear evidence, other than the IP situation here, that North Korea could be the culprit behind this attack?
Like timely, some experts indicate that today, the Thursday, was the last day of the key result exercise of the Korean and the U.S. military, and the North Korea has been threatening the Korea and the U.S. to actually, stop the exercise that's been continuing for years. So that was a day before the completion of the exercise, and some people are saying that the North Korea is like attacking us on every other odd years. The DDoS attack was back in 2009. And the attack on Chungang was in 2011, and this year is 2013, right? And they've been also threatening us to actually on military threats as well. So I think it's part of their, I don't know, maybe a huge plan and scheme of threatening us even more.
I mean, I don't know if it's we should be relieved that they're sort of coming up with these countermeasures, but this incident really made us think twice about the defense, the level of defense that we have against these cyber attacks. And even some countries like the United States, they regard these sort of a cyber attack as an act of war. I mean, we cannot overlook the situation, I believe, because of course it's not a traditional warfare, but still this can be detrimental if they were to attack our nuclear reactors or pipelines or subways. It can be detrimental and destructive to livelihoods and the well-being of Korean people.
Yeah, on the national infrastructures especially.
Right. I mean, last week Connie did inform us that she'll be joining Korea today. And that you'll be joining her as a regular guest on that very show. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because it's a new environment, new people to work with, and this is your second story you've done for KT. How did it all go? I mean, I just want to know how it all went.
Last week, I prepared like a long package of a new exchange market that's going to open in the first half, and this week it was an abrupt situation that just took place like hours before I was like in the middle of finishing the package for this week's item, and well, actually I was really surprised and a bit disappointed that like my finished product will not be airing this week.
Oh dear.
But I think like all this situations that just break out. The Asian financial crisis in 1998. Other key positions in President Park Geun-hye's new economic and an annual growth rate of 2.8%.
여태까지 사이버 어택가 역사가 이쪽하고 인터뷰 같은가요?
어떤 조치가 있었고 있었다는 사운드 바이트 포함해서 패키지로.
운동을 안 하고 있는 거예요.
이거는 그 내부의 우려는 지금 다 확인하고 있어요. 마음을 풀어야 되지 않습니까?
Well, Ganyang Daniel, it was at around 2 p.m. this afternoon. Well, Ganyang, we can't tell right now, and that is what Korea's defense minister
Defense Ministry. What?
So we scrap out the
근데 이걸 보상해준다 그랬다고?
whether it was for. Did they
What do
have
you need?
anything
When
like
is
that?
authority
No,
fine?
they didn't even
그냥 날씨가 이렇게 끝나는 거예요?
그쵸,
날씨만. 그래서 이게 대본 아예 안
Also
썼어요.
hear that they're
이건 일이 안 됐지.
I need to see the Sovereignty Response Center. They dispatch investigators on site as soon as they will report the situation.
We will now connect to Arirang News reporter Song Ji-sun, who is standing by live at the National Police Agency for more on this situation. Ji-sun, good morning. I know you've stayed up all night covering this. What's the latest?
Well, Minjan, I'm at Korea's National Police Agency, and behind me is the Sovereignty Response Center. Now, through overnight investigation, they have found us some clues that could teach us what exactly happened. Well, yeah, we can't tell right now, and this is the same words from the Defense Ministry that goes towards the princess and custody possibilities as they get to work out and continue to analyze the situation of what happened on Wednesday afternoon. Back to you guys.
All right, and we were not only bombarded by these cyber attacks and saber rattling by North Korea, but also weather-wise, we had some very unwelcome guests.
Yes, we sure did. It's yellow dust, and they could definitely do some harm a little bit to your body, to your respiratory system, especially. Well, what do you guys want to know about it? Let me ask you.
Weather-wise, it was very mild and pleasant. A lot of people wanted to go out, but then they try to stay indoors, and wearing masks in the streets and the cars were all, it looked horrible. So why this time of the year?
Okay, because the ground from the winter time is all frozen, and when spring comes, it warms up, and all the ice melts, and the ground becomes a little dry, and the winds and the updraft puts all the dust up, and that west wind brings it to the Korean peninsula. Yellow dust begins its journey to Korea from the deserts of China. The Korean government began keeping tabs on the problems back in 2002 when it implemented a yellow dust warning system. And the data over the past 10 plus years has shown that spring is prime yellow dust season. Some 70% of elevated cases of yellow dust were recorded in the months of March, April, and May. And that's mostly due to ground condition. But once summer starts, the yellow dust stays away. There are 5 places from which yellow dust originates in China, and the total area of that land is 4 times bigger than the Korean peninsula. And what's especially bad about the yellow dust coming from China is because there's a lot of factories and industrial zone that the yellow dust passes through before coming into Korea. So there's a lot of bacteria and a lot of pollutants that come with it. So, the yellow dust itself is bad for your respiratory system because it kind of clogs up, your lungs and stuff. But with even the pollutants and bacteria is even worse.
See, so you talked to some of the people in the medical institution. What did they say?
No, they said especially children, elderly are open to a lot of diseases from the yellow dust, like bronchitis and pneumonia. And even healthy people could get it too. And when it's really bad outside, there's a lot of people coming through the emergency room to get critical treatment.
I see. Well, you did this particular story in front of a chroma key, which is a blue screen. How did you find it?
Well, first, I didn't know what to do. They told me to move around. They were asking me a lot of stuff I had to do, and this was my first time. So they told me to move around like I'm going outside the screen, and I had to do it again, but it took me about 2 shots to take it. So, for my first shot, I think I did fairly well.
여기요. 네, 짤막하게 참여해 주시고요. 그거에 따른 이제 질병들 같은 거, 어떤 질병들이 있는지, 황사가 무엇인지에 관해서 설명 부탁드립니다.
공기 중에 부유하게 되면서 발생하는 물질을 황사라고 합니다. 저희 나라는 이제 편서풍 영양지대이기 때문에
황사에 대해서 어떠한 질병 같은 거 어떻게 방지하는지 제가 오늘 좀 말씀 부탁드립니다.
황사에는 이제 일반적인 공기에 비해서 이제 호흡기 질환을 많이 유발하게 되겠습니다. 특히 이제 노약자나 어린이들한테는 이제 기관지염이나 폐렴 같은 병을 일으켜서 사막지방에서 이제 발생하게 되고요.
영어 하면 되죠?
네네.
이쪽이 건조해지고
네.
사막이 이렇게 넓게 분포되어 있어요. 우리나라 쪽으로 기류가 형성이 되면 우리나라에서 관측이 됩니다.
네네. 황사가 무엇이며 왜 우리나라로 불어오는지 관해서 짤막하게 부탁드립니다.
그 접경지대가 건조하고 강풍대가 자주 형성되기 때문에 봄철에 우리나라의 황사가 많이 관측됩니다. 북서기류를 통해서 우리나라 쪽으로 향할 때 서서히 하강하면서 북서기류를 타고 우리나라에 이동하게 되고 다른 먼지가 들어오는 때
마이크.
좀만 더 안쪽으로. 아니, 좀만 더. 거기까지가 이제 안 잘리는 부분이에요, 화면에서. 여기가 있고, 한번 움직여 보시겠어요? 최대 끝까지 잡아가는 게 어디까지 가요? 딱. 이거 진짜 하는 건가요?
When implemented of yellow dust warning, making matters worse, before the west winds bring the dust up, there are 5 places from which yellow dust originates in China. When the yellow dust level exceeds 400 micrograms, a yellow dust watch is issued. Yellow dust began keeping tabs on the problem back in 2002, when it implemented some 70% of elevated cases of yellow dust before the west wind bring the dust to the Korean Peninsula. There are 5 places from which yellow dust originates in China, and everyone is urged to stay inside. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
I actually watched his piece and it was actually
Oh, you
good.
did?
Yeah.
Really? You didn't say that earlier.
I did. I mean, he used the maps and he used a lot of graphics, and it was not boring to like watch like the entire piece. Like he mixed it up with a lot of like.
Yeah, a lot of CGs, a lot of movie CGs. So I had to stay up a couple nights to get all that organized. But once I saw it on TV, it was worth it.
Hopefully our viewers could get a better idea of what yellow dust is all about.
Oh,
and
they
how-
definitely will. Definitely tune in or see the replays.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. And practice makes perfect. I'm sure you're going to find in front of the blue screen and get to be better. All right. So, thank you guys for the wrap up and the candid accounts of some of the stories that you guys have been covering throughout this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys back here next week.
Okay,
Or
you
sooner.
too.
Next week.
Okay.
Very difficult.